Point Park women's basketball makes an insane comeback. Who hoisted this year's Lombardi Trophy? And the Waste Management Cup comes to a close. It's time to come on down to Pioneer Sideline. Good evening and welcome to Pioneer Sideline. I'm your host, Matt Palangi, back with another week of sports news. Let's start off by looking at the men's hoops team who started their week in the Pioneers vs. Pioneers matchup on the road against Glenville State. Point Park had the very early lead with a 5-0 start after a layup from Caden Warner and a 3 from Ada Miller. But Glenville State stepped on the gas and followed it up with 18 unanswered points. Point Park managed to get the lead down to 7, but Glenville's quick responses and big runs led to Point Park trailing by 20 at half. The resilience of Point Park was on display, as they managed to score 8 straight to start the second half. However, this fun would quickly be punished by Glenville State, as they would bring the lead back up 18 very quickly and never look back. Glenville State would best Point Park with a final score of 82-59. Point Park's point guard Caden Warner would lead the team with scoring with 22 points. Nosworth Fisher had an efficient 13 points on 5 for 9 shooting, paired with 13 rebounds for a double-double. The boys aimed to bounce back as they got to invite the Concord Mountain Lions to Pittsburgh for a home MEC game. The Lions couldn't get going early, as the score was 10-2 within the first about 6 minutes, but early free throws by Warner and 4 early points for Nos Fisher quickly trickled into the lead. Concord swung back and went up by 13 with just about 10 minutes left in the first half, with the Pioneers yet again playing from behind. A spark was needed, and a spark Point Park got, as Brendan Williams came off the bench to score 5 points within 3 minutes, getting the lead down to 5. Williams was the leading scorer for Point Park with 23 points on an extremely efficient night, shooting 8 for 11 from the field and 3 for 5 from the perimeter. Back to the action. Point Park trailed 5 at half, within reach of taking the lead and securing a conference victory. This story would be written differently, however, as it was a hot start to the second half for the Mountain Lions, and they managed to go up 10 within 4 minutes. The Pioneers quickly responded with 6 straight points, and those points were from Brendan Williams, Ada Miller, and Aiden Anderson. The game stayed within striking distance. Point Park managed to tie it with 9 minutes left to play. Concord would regain the lead, but 5 straight from none other than Brendan Williams would allow Point Park to tie it yet again with 4 minutes left to play. After this moment, Concord would go back up, this time by 8, and hold on to the lead to secure the victory over the Pioneers with a score of 69-61. Point Park falls to a 10-12 record, 4-11 in conference play, with hopes of adding on some conference victories as the season soon comes to a close. Now we cross on over to the women's team, and Ryan Quinn has all the info. Ryan?
Thanks, Matt. Women's basketball had 2 games the past week. Both games were eerily similar, yet the results were different. The first was a Pioneer versus Pioneer showdown last Wednesday as Point Park was on the road against Glenville State. The first 2 quarters, the Pioneers could not get things going, not getting above 30% on the field. It was 42-25 at the half, but a huge third quarter came to benefit the Park. They were 55% from the arc, led by sharpshooter Alexis Giles to cut the lead down to 5 as the fourth started. The key difference maker that led to the Point Park comeback was free throws and defense. Glenville was 0 for 4 at the line, while Point Park was 7 for 8, and the field goal percentages were 14 for Glenville and 29 for Point Park. The game ended 71-65, where the defensive bout ended well for the Pioneers in Pittsburgh. Standouts were Camille Foltz and Emma Pavelek, who both had double-doubles in the victory. The second game was where Point Park returned home to combat the Concord Mountain Lions. It was deja vu for the Pioneers, not getting above 30% on the field once again, while the Mountain Lions had a successful hunt, scoring 54 of the points in the first half. The callbacks kept coming as the Pioneers had a huge third quarter, outscoring the Mountain Lions 26-7, spearheaded by Ari Beleda and Camille Foltz, while holding the Lions down to 11% on the field. Still down by 12 in the fourth, Point Park had high hopes for repeating what occurred against Glenville State. But Concord had different plans. They were able to stand their ground, stopping the comeback in its tracks as the Pioneers fell to Concord 80-67. The leading scorer for that game was Ari Beleda, scoring 17 points and getting 53% from the field. The next game for Point Park will be on the road against the West Virginia State Yellow Jackets tomorrow night at 5:30 p.m. Next, Edmi Idalis is here for a track and field update. Edmi?
Thanks, Ryan. Track and field had a successful weekend with multiple top 10 finishes and top 5 in the school books. They traveled to State College to participate in the Sykes and Sabach Challenge on Saturday, February 8th at Penn State University. The women not only had 5 participants reach top 3 spots in school records, but they also had 1 breaking a school record. Diamond Rush was strong in 2 separate events, the 60-meter race and the 200. In the 60, she recorded a time of 8.01 seconds, and she broke the school record which she had previously set in the 200 with a time of 25.35 seconds. 3 participants got the 3rd fastest time in school history in their respective events. Allison Palacio with their time of 5 minutes 12 seconds in the mile, Jana Schmidt in the 800 with a time of 2 minutes 19 seconds, and Cassandra O'Connor, who placed 6th in the 3000 with a time of 10 minutes 4 seconds. Rush, Paige Marnell, Casey Colcomb, and Mia Greschner placed 7th overall and 2nd in school history for the 4x4 relay, with a time of 4 minutes 2 seconds. Rounding out the women's performance was Dunya Vanden Toren, who tied for 5th place in the high jump with a height of 1.68 meters, which is approximately 5'6", recording the 2nd longest in school history. Toren was voted the MEC Indoor Track and Field Athlete of the Week. The men also proved to have a successful performance, with 6 top 10 finishes and 1 performance breaching the top 5 best in school records. In the 60-meter, Kamar Sutherland placed 9th with a time of 8.52 seconds, and Mustafa just missing the top 10, placing 11th with a time of 8.60. Mustafa proceeded to prove his strength in separate events with placing 10th in the 60-meter hurdles with a time of 7.05 and tying for 9th in the high jump with 1.95 meters, which is approximately 6'4". Chase Bowen recorded the 5th fastest time in school history in the 800 with a time of 1 minute and 59 seconds. Luke McKenna placed in the top 20 for the 3000 with a time of 8 minutes 52 seconds. In the long jump, Michael Quigley placed 7th with 6.68 meters and Maxwell Good placed 11th with 6.44 meters. Wrapping up the men's performance, Joshua Maurer and Emmanuel Acapoli placed 9th and 10th respectively in the 600. Maurer with a time of 1 minute 27 seconds and Akpoli with a time of 1 minute 32 seconds. This Saturday, Point Park's track and field teams are set to participate in the Spire Collegiate Indoor Games in Geneva, Ohio. Good luck, Pioneers. Back to you, Matt.
Now that's all for Point Park sports, but what's coming in this week ahead? Men's and women's hoops travels to face the West Virginia State Yellow Jackets tomorrow night. Track and field goes to Geneva, Ohio to compete in the Spire Collegiate Indoor Games, and Point Park will play on their home court at CCAC Allegheny for a conference matchup on Saturday, February 15th against Charleston. Get all the news and more on PointParkSports.com and stream games for free on MountainEast.tv. But that's all for now. Tune in next week for your Point Park Sports Update. When we come back, more of what's happening in the sports world. Stay tuned. Welcome back. For what's happening regionally, we have Megan Lukic in the studio with an update. Megan?
Thanks, Matt. The Pittsburgh Penguins were without both Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin this past weekend as they faced off against two Metro Division opponents. Crosby suffered an upper body injury against the New Jersey Devils last Tuesday, causing him to be out of the lineup. The Penguins, who were on their annual dad's trip for this set of back-to-backs, started off the weekend in New York City against the Rangers. Vincent Trocheck gave the Rangers the edge in the first period before Blake Lizotte tied it early into the second. Adam Fox got the lead right back for the Rangers about a minute later, but the Penguins wouldn't go away. Forward Ricard Raquel tied things up with a nifty flick of the puck past Igor Shesterkin, getting his 25th goal of the season. Philip Tomasino would then score on the power play to give the Penguins their first lead of the night and ultimately the 3-2 victory. The Pens then traveled to Philadelphia to face their cross-state rivals, the Philadelphia Flyers, the next night. Tied 1-1 in the second period with the Penguins getting a goal from Erik Karlsson, Flyers forward Garnet Hathaway scored on a breakaway, getting a little help from Penguins goaltender Joel Blomqvist, giving the Flyers the 2-1 lead. Travis Konechny extended the Flyers' lead on a delay penalty call in the third period, blasting the one-time pass from Cam York past Blomqvist. The Penguins got a little bit of life on a goal from Anthony Beauvillier, but the goal was initially waved off as it was believed the play was whistled dead before the puck crossed the goal line. Upon further review, the call was overturned, but the Penguins couldn't find the tying goal, ultimately falling to the Flyers 3-2. Now, the Penguins will not return to action until February 22nd as the NHL enters into the Four Nations face-off break for the next 2 weeks. Sidney Crosby is set to captain Team Canada in the tournament. Erik Karlsson and Ricard Raquel will both be representing Team Sweden, and Penguins coach Mike Sullivan will be the bench boss for Team USA. The Pirates made another off-season signing over the weekend as they are heading into spring training this week. Outfielder Tommy Pham comes over from the Kansas City Royals on a one-year, $4.025 million deal. The 12-year veteran batted a .248 for the Royals last season, including 39 RBIs and 9 home runs. Joining his 10th MLB team, it is expected that Pham will bring his veteran presence into a starting position for the Pirates' opening day lineup. Before the NFL wrapped up the season with the big game on Sunday, the league announced on Friday that the Pittsburgh Steelers will play a regular season game in Dublin, Ireland at Croke Park next season as a part of the slate of 2025 international games. Team President Art Rooney II spoke about the organization's excitement following the announcement, saying, quote, "The opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers to play in Ireland is truly special, not only because of the Rooney family history there, but also to play in front of the growing number of Steelers fans in Ireland," end quote. The opponent, date, and time for the game have not yet been announced, but are expected to be when the 2025 NFL schedule is revealed this spring. That's all from me this week. Now I'll be sending things to Gabe Ebersol at the desk for the NFL season finale. Gabe?
Thanks, Megan. With a new NFL record of 126 million average viewers, the 59th volume of football's final game was seen far and wide, broadcasted across 195 countries around the world. With all eyes on the NFL's last stand, here's exactly how it went down in New Orleans. The Chiefs won the toss and deferred the opening possession, which came to a halt after A.J. Brown was called for an OPI on a successful 4th and 2 conversion, changing the Eagles' decision to a punt. An early drop by Travis Kelce aided a quick stop for Philly, followed with a pair of passes that moved the rock, one early to Dallas Goedert, the other initially rolled a touchdown for Jahan Dotson. When the review clearly showed his knee down at the 1, everyone watching knew who the first touchdown scorer would be, and Hurts plunged it in with the push. The Chiefs would go 3 and out in response, and the Eagles methodically moved the ball 50 yards into field goal range. But on 3rd and long, Hurts recognized the A-gap blitz and lays it out for Brown one-on-one. About 5 yards too short, it's undercut by Brian Cook for the pick. But the Chiefs' O held zero traction. Quick 3 and out again, Eagles defense swarming the attack points. Critical 3rd and 7 conversion put Team Green back into position for a 2-score lead, and Jake Elliott knocks it in from 48. Sensing a chance to lay heavy, irreparable damage early, the defense kicked it up yet another gear. DN Josh Sweat would sack Mahomes on 1st and 2nd down, setting up a 3rd and very long. Rolling out the pocket to his right, number 15 fires near the sideline. And Cooper DeJean is not a safety, but he is, instead of Saquon Barkley, the first and only man in NFL history to score 6 in the big game on his birthday. Game slipping away early, KC produces another stifling 3 and out, ending with another sack. The Chiefs would force a punt, needing 94 yards in the 2-minute drill for a touchdown before half. But they fall on their face again. Very first play, Mahomes INT'd by Zach Bond over the middle. And just 10 game seconds later, A.J. Brown is celebrating 6 in the end zone with LeBron's signature silencer. The defense closes out the shutouts half with yet another 3 and out. Mahomes presently with 33 passing yards, taking 3 sacks. After Kendrick took center stage, featuring Samuel L. Jackson and Serena Williams, the Chiefs relented back-to-back sacks before punting to open the second half.
While the 12-play Eagle drive resulted in a field goal and only 20 minutes remaining, the Chiefs were put in do-and-die territory, and they failed to convert the 4th and 5 through the air. Avonte Maddox making a great play to get a mitt on the sideline out throw. Walking off the field dejectedly, though, they wouldn't be sidelined for long. One play, Devonta Smith burns the press, his 46-yard touchdown, the first ever in the biggest game for a player drafted from Bama. Now down 34-0, Kansas City would finally get on the board. X-Man catching a 50-yard pass to later set up his own 24-yard touchdown grab. The Eagles ran another 5+ minutes off the clock on the ensuing field goal drive before forcing another turnover on the drive's opening play, strip sack and recovery via Milton Williams. From 50 out, it's Elliott again to go up 40-6 with 8 minutes left. Mahomes would get off a pair of touchdown strikes, one a back shoulder toss to Hopkins and the other a fly route to Worthy out the slot from midfield. But time was running way too low. After the onside kick was recovered, Kenny Pickett assumes the victory formation, and when the final score and dust is settled, it's 40-22. The game's MVP, Jalen Hurts, finished 17 for 22 for 221 and a couple passing scores, a lone pick, while also leading the team in rushing with 11 carries for 72 yards and an additional rushing touchdown. Saquon was held in check, 25 carries for 57, but 4 receivers produced at least 40 yards on the day, along with the defense's 6 sacks and 3 takeaways. The Philadelphia Eagles avenge their 2023 defeat at the hands of the Chiefs and take home their second Lombardi in franchise history, averaging north of 36 points in their immortalized postseason run.
Thanks, Gabe, for that update. I kind of want to talk about our feelings about the game. Obviously, dominating fashion. I've never personally watched a big game that dominant. I know there's been blowouts in the past, but that final score doesn't tell the full story. In my eyes, it was more like a 40-6 game.
It was a 40-6 game. I mean, the last touchdown for the Chiefs came after Sirianni already got the Gatorade bath. So, I mean, that one was completely null. That was under the 2-minute warning with a 50-yard pass to Worthy over the top. But, I mean, yeah, looking at the Chiefs, like you saw Mahomes, like his first and second half splits, he had 33 passing yards in the first half, and he had about 210, 220 in the second half, along with 3 touchdowns. And he also threw 2 picks in the first half, took 3 sacks in both halves. So that was pretty consistently not where you want it. But, I mean, the Eagles just held them to the floor when it really mattered, and the game was anywhere within reach, and they really put it to them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that starts the conversation about Matt Nagy, someone who is the current Chiefs offensive coordinator, who Mahomes statistically and their offense statistically was way better before him. It's time to have the conversation, should they make a coaching staff change specifically to Matt Nagy?
I think yes, because the reason I think you can even look at was, granted, garbage time, they're trying to play over the top, but you're still getting better plays when you're throwing deep to Worthy. I think they need someone who can unlock the deep game they had when Mahomes first got there, and granted, they had Tyreek Hill, they had McCole Hardman, a lot of fast pass catchers out there at the time that they're not exactly piecing right now, but regardless of that, you have Worthy. You need to try to figure out a way to unlock that offense. And the check down, like they've been running a real check down slow offense this year. They ran the ball 3 times in the first half, 11 times all game, and 4 of those carries were Mahomes, and he was their leading rusher. The offense very, very often doesn't seem to have a finite direction, and I think that when you don't have an identity like that, like in these games, you don't have anywhere to fall back onto, and that's really where you get in a big hole like this.
Yeah, I mean, their offensive identity is Mahomes and Kelsey, and the thing is that this year, they haven't had an offensive identity. They have a guy that wins close games. They have that trump card player that you know is going to win you games. But the thing is in situations where they needed it this year, except the Bills game, you haven't seen it from Mahomes or Kelsey. You've seen a blocked field goal. You've seen a missed field goal. They were hanging on a thread by this whole year, and it's just about time for a lot of people. Like, you have to say, like, a team came to play. They exposed what the Chiefs do. They stacked the box at a very poor level to prevent Saquon Barkley, and that left everybody else open. Their game plan was bad, and offensively and defensively, but specifically offensively, they have no run game. Mahomes has been bad. I think it's time to start the Matt Nagy conversation. But the Lombardi MVP, Jalen Hurts, this year, I understand why he won it. I kind of talked about how it could have been Sweat or Milton Williams as well, but their defense dominated. How should we start viewing Jalen Hurts? Is he a top 5 quarterback? Did he deserve the Lombardi MVP as well?
I think he did deserve the MVP because, to me, the defensive performance was more of a group effort. You had
Yeah.
a couple guys with a couple sacks. You had Cooper's pick 6. You had a couple other interceptions, forced fumbles. Like, to me, it was more of a valiant just team defensive effort. Like, even Avonte Maddox, a guy who got sent to the bench for DeJean near the end of the season, he comes off the bench and makes that 4th down play to swat it away. Like, to me, it was just more of a unit play, whereas Hurts, to me, he was controlling that offense. He was picking up the reads on the blitz. Other than that underthrow, which even then, I would argue that was the right read to throw a one-on-one to A.J. Brown.
Yeah, he just
he
played it
severely
wrong.
underthrew it. That was his really only glaring mistake on the day to me. Something I took note of was when he rolled in tightrope the sideline to the right, when he picked up an additional like 15, 18 yards, when it looked like he was going to be cut for maybe 2. Like the plays that he made, he's very confident in the way he's been playing, and I think he's going to progress even more next year because he's given me reason to believe so.
Yeah, I think the one thing to be careful of is if the Kellen Moore leaving to the Saints might make a difference. Yeah. But right now, I think with the quarterback play we have in the NFL season, I'm very confidently putting him at the 5 spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think he belongs up in that conversation for sure. Time will tell, obviously. If you got guys like Joe Burrow up there, I think a lot of that comes to what you value between passing and running, because Hurts a lot of his value is going to be in running, and that's just what it is. But flipping sides of the defense, though, I mean, the Eagles brought 4 guys all day and consistently got pressure. They forced turnovers. Yeah. To me, that is the mark of a great defense. Like when you can stick to your game plan and make the offense do what you want them to do, that they just impose their will all game long, and that's why they came away with the win. Yeah, they were an elite defense all year. Shout out Vic Fangio. He really changed that around. Zach Bond. So good for them. So thank you for joining me, Gabe. After the break, more breaking sports news.
Take them, cue them, open their mics.
They mark the 1-year anniversary of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette strike.
Point Park University just hosted a campus-wide meeting.
Plans for the rapid transit bus line are not set to conclude until 2025.
Welcome back. McKenna Smith is now here with an update on a huge Premier League upset. McKenna?
Thanks, Matt. One of the biggest shocks of the season unfolded in the FA Cup's 4th round as Liverpool, the best team in European soccer this season, suffered a stunning 1-0 defeat to champion side Plymouth, the loss even more remarkable given the fact that Plymouth sits 43 places below Liverpool in the English football pyramid, making this an upset for the ages. The decisive moment came in the 53rd minute when Liverpool's Harvey Elliott was penalized for a handball inside the box, gifting Plymouth a golden opportunity from the spot. Ryan Hardy stepped up and coolly slotted the penalty past Liverpool goalkeeper, sending Home Park into a frenzy. Despite Liverpool dominating possession, they struggled to break down Plymouth's disciplined defense. Manager Arne Slot responded by bringing on Darwin Nunez to spark a comeback, but Plymouth's backline held firm, shutting out one of the most dangerous attacking teams in world football. As the final whistle blew, Liverpool found themselves crashing out of the FA Cup in one of the most shocking results in recent history. And for Plymouth, it's a night to remember, a true David versus Goliath moment that will go down in FA Cup history. Next, Nick Shamito has results from the Waste Management Phoenix Open Cup. Nick?
Thanks, McKenna. This past weekend, the greatest golf tournament was played. No, not the Masters. The Waste Management Open, or as some like to say, the People's Open. First, on the first day, world phenom Scottie Scheffler had an eagle hole out from 104 yards to put him back to even par. He would finish the tournament 9 under, tied for 25th. On day 2, a hole-in-one was captured on the famous hole 16. Emiliano Grillo was the man to do it. Showers of beer were in the forecast as cups came flying down onto the 16th green after he slam dunked it right in the hole. On day 3, Jordan Spieth had a bogey-free day round, going 4 under on the day to put him at 13 under, but it would not be enough to catch leader Thomas Detry. On day 4, Detry, who was leading the whole tournament, pulled away from Spieth and Michael Kim to win his first PGA event. Congrats to Detry for winning the 2025 Waste Management Open. That's all for me, and the rest of us. Back to you at the desk, Matt.
Thanks, everyone. When we come back, we discuss the honor and difficulty of the professional trophies. Stay tuned. Welcome back. One more championship has been crowned in the sports world, and it makes us wonder what championship out of the 4 national sports is the most prestigious to win. I'm joined by Nick, Gabe, and McKenna to discuss this. So Nick, since you're the closest to me, I'm going to start off with you. I want to hear your opinion. Out of the 4 national sports, the NHL, the MLB, the NBA, and the NFL, which championship is the hardest to win?
NHL, definitely. I mean, it's called the hardest trophy to win in sports for a reason. When you're playing 82 games of pure physicality, these are men who will do whatever it takes to win. They'll block shots at like 100 miles per hour. They'll get injured, and like I've seen people get shot in the face, all bloodied up. They just come back in the game like it's another day at the office. If you're doing that for, the season, it starts in September with the preseason. You're playing all the way until June. So you're basically playing, what is that? Quick math, 10 months, 9 months, 8 months, whatever that is. If you're going all out for that long and playing that physical of a sport, it's going to take a toll on your body. And, I think back to a few years ago, Zdeno Chara had literally his jaw wired shut and a bunch of other injuries. Bill played in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, basically severely injured, and he played. I mean, it's the hardest trophy to win for a reason, because of just how much it takes.
I'm going to skip over me for now. Gabe, I want to hear your take on that.
So while I do agree with your point of the player toughness, and even the President Trophy winner usually doesn't win the cup, I think that baseball has the argument for being the hardest sport to win a trophy in. And the reason why is because from a management perspective, just getting a team capable of winning a championship is a very hard feat, because there's no floor or cap level. So you have teams that are just naturally in the big market, like New York teams, LA teams, that are going to take a lot of the players and just throw money at them, and they're going to want to go there because they're premier places to live. So if you're left in Milwaukee, let's say, you're not getting the top of the barrel guys a lot of time because you can't pay them $1 billion. So that's just to start with. And then also, I think an underlooked aspect of baseball is that you have to be able to develop players in baseball. No one comes right into the MLB standing there and just comes out hitting 300. Like, it doesn't happen in the MLB. So, and the bottom teams usually don't have great developers. They don't have good people to just kind of progress their franchise, and that's just a noticeable theme. You see it sometimes in football with teams like the Browns. Like, you see like poverty franchises, quote unquote, like the Giants. But from a baseball perspective, I think it's way harder to dig yourself out of that hole. So that's for my reason why I think baseball's harder.
Yeah, the Pirates are a good example of that. Sorry, guys. McKenna, what's your take?
I mean, I completely agree with both of your points. I agree with Nick that the fact that the NHL is just so physical, it's just truly hard to last the whole season. But for me, we're all going to define what the hardest, team or league is. But in my opinion, I think it's got to be the NFL, because of the fact that it's so much pressure on you mentally because in these, these different leagues, you have several games to, if you have a bad game or not, you can come back the next game and you can figure out what went wrong. But when you're playing in the playoffs in the NFL, you got one shot. And if you don't do everything perfect, you're going to get eliminated. Lamar Jackson, he plays great. Josh Allen, he plays great, but his team was not able to find a way to win and find a way to get to the big game. And because of that, they're out. And so I understand the fact that maybe it is not the most physical, maybe it's not the longest season, but the fact that each of these games holds so much more importance because you're only playing 17. And then you're only playing 3 to 4 to get to the big game at the end of the season. So I think that the fact that these games are just so much more important, and so you have less opportunities for error.
Yeah, so I do agree with one of you guys. I agree with McKenna on this one. I actually have the NFL personally. Kind of just what you said, that every game is basically like the big game to you. You could lose one game. Let's talk about the Bengals for a second. If they win week 1, they make the playoffs, they could beat the Chiefs first round. Not the Chiefs, but they could beat the 2-seeded Bills first round. They could beat the Ravens first round, wherever they're at. That's why I think NFL is the hardest, because every game needs to be treated like the final game. And that is why I have the NFL. I like what you said about physicality. I like your argument with baseball because, especially development, we see it in bad teams. Example, sorry to all the Pirates fans. I know we're in Pittsburgh here, but the Pirates are really bad developing players. So that is a big reason why they haven't had that success in the player development and in the cap space. But the Dodgers haven't won that much in the last 20 years. The Yankees haven't won since 2009. So we've seen those small market teams like the Nationals win in 2018. For the NHL, I like the President's Trophy argument more. I wish you brought that up. Gabe brought it up.
Yeah, that was
I would
a
say
great
the
one.
President's Trophy, but for me, because every game has to be treated like the biggest one, is why I have NFL. If anyone wants to tell me why they would disagree with me on that, but
I can point out for your sport and your sport, I think that there's more weight on individual players in your sport. Like if you get a QB, you're like, let's say you have a Joe Burrow, a Mahomes, a Josh Allen, a Lamar, you're going to be not a contending team, but you're going to be in the playoffs for the next decade. We know this. But whereas in baseball, you have to get depth. You can't win with a Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on the same team. That just proves that you need to be able to build an entire roster. You have to build a deep roster. You have to have a bullpen. You have to have pitchers. You have to have people who are hitting consistently and won't go dry. Because also you can see teams like the Phillies get hot in the playoffs and they can also come out and win it too. So even if you're good all season, just like another argument, there's no guarantee you're going to win the World Series just because you're the most expensive team or just the best team in the regular season. So even from that perspective, I think baseball is very hard to win.
I will say baseball is actually my second under NFL, but I want to hear why I still want you to stand your ground on the NHL.
For me,
thing.
I gotta be honest. I fully agree with Gabe here too. I'd probably say out of the big four, I'd probably say MLB second. And they basically are really similar things in my opinion. You need, what Gabe said for MLB, you need that depth in NHL. We've seen the past however many years, depth wins championships in both leagues. In NHL, they have a very physical, the Panthers last year, who won the Cup, very physical third and fourth line. Vegas, same thing, very physical third and fourth line. Out-hitting your opponents. Your top two lines, you need that skill. Those star players who are going to, do their thing. They're going to score, they're going to make great plays, they're going to help you win. But that third and fourth line, on basically every championship team in the past, however many, basically every championship team, you have to have physical, skilled guys in your depth pieces. And on defense too, you need a star number one defenseman, you need good, solid number two defenseman, and then just good depth pieces as well. And then for goaltending, you need a great first goaltender and a great backup, because if that first goaltender goes down, you need a great backup goalie to help carry the load during the playoffs. The Penguins, when they won the back-to-back cups, I don't know if you guys remember, but in 2016, Game 1, before the playoffs even started, Fleury was already out, and Matt Murray got injured in warm-ups. So Jeff Zakoff, our third-string goalie, comes in and beats the Rangers in Game 1. That type of stuff you need to win the Stanley Cup. You need it. And I just think depth, like you mentioned, in baseball too, depth is such a huge part. And in the NFL, I also agree with Gabe's point. Basically, if you have a star player or a star quarterback, star wide receiver, you're going to go to the playoffs. We know that. Joe Burrow,
Missed
Did not
the
make
missed the
Did not
playoffs
make
this
the
year.
playoffs, but okay.
Because they have a bad defense. There's three sides of football. There was a team that had the first seed, that had the number one ranked offense, number one ranked defense, 32nd ranked special teams, and they missed the playoffs. Everything matters for me. So I like all your guys' takes, but that is unfortunately all the time we have this week. Be sure to join us next week at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer channel, and the same Pioneer Sideline.